Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of National Distance Learning Week with SUNY Online. I see some familiar faces. I'm glad to have you back in another session. I think you'll really enjoy today. If we haven't met, I'm Erin Maney. I'm the Manager of Communications and Community Engagement at SUNY Online, and I'll be your moderator. We have just a few housekeeping items. If you could keep your mics muted as the session's being recorded just during the presentation part. Certainly we'll invite questions along the way in the chat and have some time at the end to do that as well. We'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from, what your role is at your institution. That helps to just kind of see where the audience is coming at from this. I'm really thrilled to introduce our speakers today. We have Jennifer Shloming and Calvin Williamson, both from Fashion Institute of Technology. Jennifer is an associate professor at FIT and the assistant chairperson of the Science and Mathematics Department. She's been at FIT as a faculty member since 2006, and she teaches both online and in-person mathematics courses. She completed the Teaching with Technology certificate program at FIT and is a SUNY Online Teaching Ambassador. Her research interests include technology and teaching and learning, rapid content generation for mathematics, mathematical fiction, mathematical poetry, which I find fascinating, and online learning. And she's co-authored an OER in statistics and authored an OER in graph theory. Calvin Williamson is a professor in the Science and Mathematics Department at FIT. He teaches mathematics, statistics, machine learning, and programming. He's also worked as a software engineer specializing in computer graphics and film production software for special effects companies like Rhythm and Hughes Studios in Los Angeles. Awesome. It's so interesting to hear people's backgrounds. So thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'll post a link in the chat to where folks can get slides and recordings momentarily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Let's start sharing over here. Let's see. Window, entire screen. Oh. Okay. Everyone can see us okay?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to talk about creating an OER textbook this morning, and hope by the end you will consider creating your own as well. Oh, I'm blocking. There we go. So there we are. There we are as Bitmojis, and this will come back later in the presentation. So here are our current OER textbooks. This is used for in-person and online sections. The book is called An Introduction to Statistics for Non-Science Majors. And we use this in our courses, but so do other instructors at our college, which is very exciting for us. We even discovered a new person this semester just casually mentioned that they were using it. So it's always really cool about OER that anyone can use it. And we have faculty who do use it.
Yeah, and it's since it's OER, it's kind of, it's free to get started using it as long as you just have the link to it. And so we don't always hear when new people start to use it. But it's really interesting to hear that someone has picked up the book and started using it. It's really great. It's a really great feeling.
It's a fun surprise. And this is an introduction to graph theory for non-majors. And this right now is only used to teach in person because we only have one section of graph theory that runs once a year. But anyone can use it because they are OER. And we would love, well, I would love, I'm sure Calvin too, we would love to have more OER textbooks because we teach a variety of courses. Besides for statistics, Calvin can say what he teaches.
Yeah, I teach statistics as well. I also teach machine learning and data science, and I teach a little bit of color science as well. But it'd be nice to have kind of one of these sort of textbooks for each of my classes. It's just such, works out really well. There's a lot of ways you can use it besides just the classes as well too. So they're really rewarding to build.
Yes, same. I want them for all my classes. So statistics, graph theory, mathematical ideas would be a really great one to have. We both teach geometry and the art of design and other courses. The issue is we only have 2, which is quite a lot of work but it's really hard to find time during the semester. So I suggest this as a great side project, or however you get research done, if you can take a sabbatical. So for my sabbatical that I had, I did this graph theory book. And I mean, I spent every hour working on it. But if you can put time in your schedule, it would be great. Sabbatical, I recommend during winter break, summer break, and if anyone is doing NaNoWriMo, which is the National November Writing Month, to write a book, it would be great. I think it's worth it, but just wanted to say it does take time. Okay. So maybe you've heard what OER is, but just to remind you what it is, OER is Open Educational Resources, and they are any type of educational materials that are in the public domain or released under a license that can be, keyword here, freely shared, freely used and shared. And it doesn't limit to textbooks, right? Just OER textbook is what we're talking about, but you can have other OER educational materials. And in the chat, maybe later you can write down if you know, what your subject area is, because we do have other OER material that's in math that's not a textbook that we can share if there's time. But for this, we're going to continue talking about how, when, and why of OER textbooks. Okay, and oh, I wish I could move this again. Here, I'll put us on top there. We heard about OER, my guess is 5 years ago. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, longer than that.
Oh, 7 years. It's all a blur.
Good.
It's all a blur. So maybe around 7 years ago is when we first heard about OER. Somebody from the FIT library came and gave a little talk, and we were really excited about this. And we thought it was pretty innovative for us to teach and for our students to use.
Yeah, the idea of kind of OER, my background in software, I worked on open source software projects, which means that, you know, you publish the source code for the project that you're working on, and other people can take a look at it and they can reuse it in various ways. So my background was open source programming before I got into the OER textbooks and materials. But that model kind of makes perfect sense for content and educational resources as well too, because it really means that you're not restricted for, you know, when you get ready to use it or share it or show it to students or give it to instructors. You're really completely free to kind of share, you know, openly and without kind of having to worry about licensing or paying and all these kind of complicated things that would keep you from disseminating this information. So for me, that's the attraction. It's just the unrestricted ability to use it any and everywhere. You know, send links to a student in an email, or students that, you know, aren't necessarily taking our course but need a reference. I used to share my textbook or this textbook with the tutoring center at our school, and they could all use it to kind of tutor students as well. So this unrestricted use that OER resources provide is really, really compelling, I think.
It's super compelling, but the question I hear a lot is, maybe you hear it too, why in the world would you create your own textbook, and also why would it be for free? Or that's what my dad said. Why would it be for free? Why are you doing this for free? But as Erin mentioned, we teach at FIT, and in particular, in our college, we actually don't have any math majors. But I think no matter what subject you're teaching, students would prefer a free book for many reasons. But here, teaching mathematics courses in a place where there are no math majors can, I wrote sometimes be challenging, but it's most of the time very challenging. Students have math anxiety in our college, and I'm sure in other places as well. And just finding ways to help students, especially alleviating a financial burden, it's definitely a positive change. Students really appreciate low cost or no cost books when it's possible. So some courses, you know, you might not have a choice, but if you do have a choice to pick your own textbook, we pick low or no cost. So we think it's ideal for students in terms of the cost. And, as mentioned many years ago, we heard about OER and we got excited by it. I wrote a little blog post if you're interested to hear more about my experience working with OER. Hopefully all of you will work with OER at some point if you haven't already. But the key thing here with this OER textbook is that it's your textbook. So you can create the examples that work best for your own students. So FIT is in New York City. So we have examples that cater to our particular students and our location. So we have an example of best pizza places in New York City. We have about machines making garments in relation to the measure of spread, because we have fashion designers. Do you want to say one bit?
Yeah. So a lot of students that take our statistics class are from business-related majors here. We have a part of our school is a business division. And so we have students that are going into retail, a lot of students that are going into marketing. Those are kind of two of the big majors here. And it's really important for those students. I mean, they come with their majors kind of already picked out. So they're kind of, tunnel sort of vision on their, where they're headed and the kinds of jobs they're going to get. And it's really, really great. And it makes a real difference if you can tailor your examples from your textbook to kind of be relevant for their areas. So, for example, I do a lot of basic statistics kind of calculations and stuff just from retail situations. I'll give you an example. There's this idea called service level, which is for if you're in retail and you're selling a retail item, it's the proportion of time that the item is in stock whenever a customer comes in to kind of look for it. So businesses talk about this all the time, like what's the service level for their different items. If they have a really important item to their brand, they want the service level to be really high. They want it to be 98%, for example. So it turns out that you can do a lot of elementary stat examples just based on that idea of service level and kind of the topics surrounding that. And the students really love this because these are the topics they talk about in their retail courses. So if you can tie the kind of material in your stat course to their industry and their area, it makes better sense for them. And stat is very broad. It kind of applies to every industry, I say. So it's really useful to be able to fix the examples and have a set of examples that work specifically for what you need it for.
Mm-hmm. And if you're making an OER textbook in any area, you can keep that in mind. You can use the location of your institution. You could use the kinds of students you have, and you could also talk about yourself. So I talk a lot about myself in the books. I think it's really nice to create examples that work best for your own students, but I think it's really nice to bring you into the material, especially, we're teaching in-person and online courses, but the online courses, they don't get to know you, I guess, as well sometimes. So the more that you can bring yourself into the situation, it's also fun that students get to know more about you. Okay. When you create your own book for your course, so it's really nice when it feels more customized and special to your students, right? They also get to know you better on how you're writing to them and the examples used. And we think that it's important to make students feel like you're bringing yourself into the teaching, especially when you're online, like I mentioned. And you can do this in different ways also. It doesn't have to be an OER textbook. Like you can have Bitmojis in your class. I have lots of Bitmojis in my class. We have, different way, lots of videos. I know we both post videos in our courses. I have like a little graph animated thing of myself. But Bitmojis are one thing, but when you're creating a textbook, that's just next level of really customizing and bringing yourself into it. But you can see we love Bitmojis.
Yeah, and the students really appreciate that you wrote the textbook. When you talk about it, and you talk about how it's organized and stuff, they really appreciate that it's your kind of effort. They can see a lot of times your personality in the book and what you emphasize and what you think is important. So it really kind of enhances your in-person kind of classes, if it's personalized that way. So there's a lot to be said for being able to kind of personalize a textbook with your kind of approach.
And also, so they get to know you in both the books. We talk about Instagram. In my graph theory one, we talk about Facebook, Twitter, pop culture, their majors. But it was really interesting. I used Facebook as an example, and students right now, they don't know what Facebook is, some of them. So, it's good to put in some like important things that, us older people know about. For Facebook, I'm explaining a concept saying, well, in Facebook, if you're friends with someone, it's a mutual thing here, and talking about undirected graphs versus Twitter, which most people do know about Twitter, where Twitter, you can follow someone who doesn't follow you back. So students like that, and I always like to see who knows now, because I really thought everyone knew about Facebook, so that was fun. And you'll see later, we'll try to show you other examples where
and it is really true that the students really like to see examples related to social media. They use it all the time. They use a lot of different tools. They really kind of understand it very well. So if you are struggling for an area, you want to kind of present your content and just use social media, it really works like a charm. The students really understand all the different aspects to it, and so you can kind of apply your topics to that area.
Yeah. And so this is just a screenshot of one of the books, the statistics books, to show you examples of how we, talk to the student and give some information about ourselves. So, this is just a random page that had examples. We wrote Instagram here, and I have.
Oh, this is the bubble tea example.
Yeah, so I always have bubble tea. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. I always have one when I'm teaching. But students get to, if they read the book, then they figure out, oh, you know what, maybe she really does love bubble tea. And I do have students to come up to me in person and tell me about bubble tea recommendations. So you can see I wrote over here, like, one of the authors is obsessed with bubble tea and made this statistic up. That's a reason why statistics can be powerful and dangerous, and so on.
And then the students ask me too if I love bubble tea. And so I'm left saying, yeah, I love it.
So we think that, it's ideal for many reasons to have an OER textbook, but another reason is because ours, at least it's online, right? And most OER material is shareable and freely used online. And you can access it as long as you have internet. You can view the books. You can use a computer, a tablet, a cell phone, and it's really convenient to have it work anywhere that has, internet, and better for the environment. But if you wanted, you could download it as a PDF. Have you downloaded it as a PDF?
Not very frequently. I mean, sometimes the students will come to me, for tutoring or for office hours, and they'll have a printed version of it, and having a PDF of it is certainly handy. But, nowadays, especially because it's accessible online the way it is, and it kind of looks better as, on the web, on your phones, for example, the students almost always are using it exclusively on the computer in the classroom and then on their phones elsewise, really. So the PDF doesn't get used much, but because it's an OER textbook, you can have multiple formats for it. If you wanted to have an EPUB version, you could. Then it could be read on various readers as well too. So there's a lot of different things you can do with your format if you decide to make it OER, because you're completely kind of unrestricted how you want to kind of format your content. And I would say have multiple different formats for it, as whatever you think the students are going to wind up needing have those. The PDFs are nice if you're going to print them, but most people don't print. But you know, when you need to print it, it's there. You know, and you can kind of use that format too.
And someone who did, we found out, use our book did mention that they printed the whole book, which was surprising.
We heard an instructor lately say, "Yeah, I print out the whole book for the students." I was like really impressed and they could do that because it was provided as a PDF, so that was an option that was available for them.
Okay. Before we actually look at some of these textbooks, I think another ideal situation about an OER textbook, depending on how you use it, is you could only have one link forever. So, you know, around in this office, if you looked, you'll see textbooks, you know, different math textbooks that have like many different editions, maybe like 20th edition of something. I know one of the books that I currently use the 10th expanded edition. There's always different editions, right? And you have to get new ones each time. But here you can make updates in the code, but the link stays the same. The only time the link can change is if you change how you're creating the book. So for statistics, this is our second edition, but it's the same material. Now it's on Quarto. It used to be with Bookdown and Graph Theory. Right now it's using Bookdown, but I do hope to have a new link next semester when it's on Quarto. But that's the only way to change the link.
Yeah, this idea about having kind of sort of a rolling sort of approach to your content is really useful because mid-semester I find stuff that is incorrect and typos and things that need to be fixed, and you'd like to fix those things kind of immediately, but not destroy any of your links that you have. So this process that we use, that it uses this publishing system called Quarto, which we'll describe in a few minutes later, it makes it so that you can actually kind of update your content, but all of the links to existing chapters and existing examples stay exactly the same. They don't change, even if the numbering of the different examples changes, which in technical books and science and technical textbooks, every example and every problem has a different number on it that comes from the chapter and the number of the example and the chapter, but those links stay the same, even if you kind of update the number of examples you have or the content you have. And so you can use this idea of kind of gradually updating your textbook sort of continually without really, needing to publish an entirely new edition. And this is really kind of a handy feature of publishing it kind of online like this.
And before, each semester, if you're really ambitious, you can do a little survey to see what majors your students are into, and then, add an example if you haven't already dealing with that major or an interest that the students have. So you can continually update it that way, and the students won't know. So we'll show you just a little bit. I know Erin already shared links to these because you can use them for the book. What's nice is some, you're writing it, you can make it long or short. So, the second part is pretty tiny over here. And then you can have a section, you could have a bunch of sections that are quite long. So you can see just examples. You could have tables. And what we have, I'm going to show you. Oh, there's the New York pizza. What's your favorite pizza place in New York City? Tell us, please. You could create your own images. You could create your own charts. This one, I'll quickly show you a not so great looking image, but at least the students can tell that we made it, right? So, they're not professional, but I think they appreciate when you're putting in the work. Here you can see a much nicer looking dot plots here that Calvin coded really nicely. I'm going to show you one of my favorite sections. Well, I'll show you two of my favorite sections of the stats book. So our students, I think one of the key concepts in statistics is using a table to look up area from a z-score or vice versa. And having this, which I don't think I've ever seen in a textbook so nicely explained. I'm saying because Calvin did this, and it's so beautiful, this page, where even if you don't know what's happening here, to look up where z is a negative 1.25 in this way with multiple highlights in a table and bold and break it down step by step. This is exactly what I thought was missing from textbooks, just to have these explanations that our students would appreciate, right? Because they're not math majors.
Yeah, so one of the problems in statistics that you find if you teach it is that as you do the calculations, you know, you have to look up various things in tables. There's, you know, you know, statistical tables are famous. They're in the back of every stat book. And what we found was that most textbooks, you know, leave out really how the tables work. And, you know, maybe the students learn how the tables work pretty well and they do okay in the class. But if they don't really understand how to look up these various calculations in the tables, they're kind of left behind. And so what we came up with is a way to kind of put the specifics of the table lookup in each problem. And that seems to really help if the students can kind of see how to, you know, actually go to the table and look up the information they need while they're working on these stat problems. You know, that kind of helps, you know, them kind of do this work on their own, because, you know, in the classroom, you can walk around and kind of look at people and see if they're looking up things in these tables correctly. But, you know, online, for example, if they're working on it at home, you can't. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of reproduced in the textbook the actual, you know, all the steps of working through a problem, which is, you know, really kind of rarely done, to have these tables inserted right into the text. And it seems to really have helped our students. I mean, they really do oftentimes go a lot of the course and you know, not knowing how to use the table. I'm like, this is, you know, it's critical for you to learn this table in order to get by in this class. But you know, they'll still be struggling with it even long after, you know, they should have kind of mastered it.
And also what we, in statistics classes here, we use Google spreadsheets, or some people use Excel to teach. And before, it was like this separate thing. You had spreadsheets over there, and then you have all the other content on one side. But now, you know, with this textbook, we actually have, you know, explaining how to do spreadsheets right in the book. So everything really for the course is in one place. I think this is just so helpful for the students. They don't have to go all different places to see the material. Do you have any other favorite sections of this book to show? Or should we go to the next book?
Yeah, let's go to the next book.
Okay. And just quickly, for graph theory, it'll look a little different because it's not with Quarto yet. But, you know, same idea here. And I'll just, so here you can see, I make these graphs. There's a big difference between the ones that I make, but I actually like the feel of the ones that I make. Students know, oh wait, this is my instructor made these for me and using the colors I want. But then also, I have a lot of ones using a website that looks, nicer. In the graph theory one, there's some GIFs or GIFs and different memes and images. I'll just scroll. I have GIFs. Let me show you one GIF.
And when you're, writing these textbooks like this, it is, quite a bit of work to kind of decide how you're going to treat your graphics, And so, are you going to do those by hand in a paint program or, some kind of program? Are you going to do them programmatically, which our stat book, a lot of those graphics are created by some R code that's produces graphics at the right spot in the textbook. But building these graphics and how you're going to do it, your strategy for doing that is really kind of key for any textbook that you're going to write.
Yeah, I really, if you're doing something on the board and you have videos, you can put that in your book. So not only can you embed things into the book and have nice tables, but you can also have lots of links to other sites, which, you're the one doing the linking. So you can link to anything that you want. So I talk about 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, which maybe all of you know that game. It's a graph theory game. I link to it. so students don't know about. By the way, students don't know that game anymore.
No, they don't.
They don't know that game.
Kevin Bacon, no.
But you can do so much with it. And they also don't really know the Brady Bunch. And I have a little GIF here, Euler, 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 which is, I think it's fun. So the textbook, again, it's good for the students, but they also see your humor, and, we enjoy.
They don't know the Brady Bunch?
A lot of them don't know the Brady Bunch.
All right.
But if you take graph theory, you do know Euler because he's all over the place. Okay, so that's just a little sneak peek at the books, but you have the links, and Calvin can take it over.
Oh yeah, so just a couple comments about the technical system that we use for this. First here, just a comment. I think we made this point already earlier, that if you're working with the right kind of formatting system and kind of system for publishing your book, or creating the kind of website and the PDF for it, you can make sure that you can kind of arrange things so that you can work on it in that kind of rolling fashion. So you're always kind of updating the content as you go, but that doesn't destroy the links, and it doesn't really make it unusable for other instructors, for example. Like, now we know that other instructors are using our textbooks, so you don't want to just publish a new chapter and rearrange the examples in a way that destroys all of their links if they have links to specific items in the book, like chapters and or examples. So you should think about which system you're going to use for your content that would enable those kind of changes as you go forward. So that's we settled on one that kind of makes it work for that, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Let's go to the next slide. So here's the kind of technology underneath our textbook, and other textbooks might use a different approach. But what our textbook is basically is what's called a literate program. So that means what it is it has some content in some of those pages, like regular kind of HTML content with markup and so forth. And you kind of put bullet points, or you bold things, and you highlight things, and you have italics. So I call that the content, the kind of lecture notes part of our book. And then there's also some code that goes with, for example, all of the examples that we want to give. So the coding part of it is where you would write some code in a programming language like R or Python, and you put that code in, and the purpose of the code is to produce the different graphics or the different calculations that you need for the book. So this approach to kind of producing content, kind of technical content online, is pretty popular nowadays. There's a bunch of different systems that do this. They go by the name Jupyter and Google Colab and so on. But basically, the idea is kind of a document that mixes together both content and sort of calculations that can do graphics and produce graphics. One of the most well-developed nowadays is one from this company called Posit, which used to be our studio, and it's now developed a system called Quarto. And Quarto is a publishing system for books and websites and PDFs that takes your kind of literate program, which is content in R, programming language R, or content in the programming language Python is the other big example, and kind of renders that out into a textbook like you saw before, with sort of the table of contents and the chapters and all of the content kind of nicely laid out. So this approach for this made sense for for our OER, but not every OER would need a kind of literate program underneath it. But at least for our course and the technical kind of requirements for all the graphics and the calculations we want to do with it, it worked really well for us. But of course, an OER can be any content that you're just going to publish, and if you have a system for doing that, then it would make sense. So yeah, that's the technical aspect underneath ours. And the Quarto system is very, very sophisticated. It works really well. It's a bit of a, it's a bit of a curve to learning it. But once you get used to it, and especially if you're on the technical side of any subject, it can publish out things in LaTeX and very kind of sophisticated formatting as well too.
Okay, I see that we should be done. So to leave time for questions, but we are. So
Yeah,
thank you
you're
for
good.
talking to us.
Thank you so much. So Quarto is a new software to me. I'm not familiar with that, and it's really neat what it's able to do.
Yeah, Quarto can you can write your textbook and kind of Markdown is the kind of native format for it. You write it in Markdown, which is sort of simpler kind of markup language, not as hard as HTML. And then what Quarto can do is take your Markdown and also your code and stuff and kind of render it out into HTML pages or render it out into PDFs and kind of any of those formats. So it's sort of a comprehensive kind of, formatting publishing system that's really well done. It's been under development for a number of years. It existed in an older format called Bookdown, which was sort of the precursor to Quarto. But Quarto is kind of a very agile kind of publishing system that really kind of does a lot of the lifting for you for like producing your content from your kind of raw Markdown files. So it's a bit technical, I'd say, to learn at first, especially if you're not already in math or science or stat or whatever, or technical subject. But even it's being used for a lot of non-technical subjects as well too now, just because it's so good at publishing these different formats.
And it's interesting, on Tuesday afternoon, our presentation used Markdown software for developing pages in Brightspace. But so if you attended that session, putting that information together with this information would be really interesting for you. I know a lot of people were playing around in that Markdown tool afterwards.
Yeah, Markdown is a fabulously kind of simple
for people who aren't coders.
Simple but powerful.
Yeah.
Kind of raw text format for your content. It's really, and I would say nowadays you're smart to put your content in Markdown because it can be delivered out in many different, kind of formats if you're willing to kind of put it into Markdown in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know some folks some folks here today are those who support online faculty, and I would encourage you to share this presentation with your mathematics faculty. And as our presenters did mention, FIT has created additional math OER, so they may want to connect with Jen and Kelvin and can share their emails here. Are there questions or thoughts that folks have had? Feel free to unmute or use the chat. We have about 5 more minutes, so we're happy to see.
Oh, great. Good, Donna. Please share away.
That's awesome.
What school, what SUNY are you?
Niagara County Community College.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. And like I said, I'm gonna show them the books and stuff and see what they think. And
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please do.
They could just even use some of our examples.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's the really powerful thing about OER is it's ready to use. It's really, if you have the link and you're willing to kind of distribute it and read it and understand it, there's no restrictions. That's what I really like. I send individual links for particular problems a lot to students, and if it weren't an OER resource, there would be like, they would have to have a particular textbook, or they would have to have access to a library, or they'd have to have access to some login to McGraw-Hill or whoever it is to kind of get in and get the textbook. But for an OER, you can go directly from the link to the problem, and the student is just right there. So it makes it really easy to kind of talk with students about specific problems over the phone or through shared kind of Zoom kind of situations as well too. OER resources, I think, work really well on the web, the way we work now, because a lot of stuff is remote and remote synchronous, and it works really well for all those new modalities we've been using since the pandemic.
Right. Sarah asked if you have recommendations to find OER for other disciplines, and I just put in the SUNY OER services link to their ready to adopt course catalog. But are there other things that you have found that you enjoy using?
You know,
Or,
Sarah,
colleagues maybe.
you could email me because I did a Lumen circle on OER, and that's when I really was like, oh wait, you know what, OER is not just about textbooks. Like there's so many different things, and also I took notes, so I don't remember things offhand, but I can share some notes, and also how to search on Google in a particular way to find images or other things that are free to use in the public domain, because before I didn't know that.
Yeah, but if you start with the SUNY services link that's there that Aaron's given, you'll kind of be led off in a bunch of directions. That's really, if you go to some of the sites that kind of carry the OER textbooks, you'll start to get an idea of how to find, more collections and kind of resources. And it's addictive. Once you start looking at these, different books and you realize they're OER, it's very exciting. It's kind of a thrilling, experience to know that you can, go to these textbooks and kind of remaster them and remix them. And that's encouraged. And that's, the way it's supposed to work. So for me, that was one of the really exciting things about it is I would see other people's examples and just, start thinking about how I can organize mine or reuse some of theirs. It's really, really great.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Calvin, that, the OER that you find and discover can inspire you to create your own, but you can also adapt it. And that's why the open licensing of materials and that sharing in that space is so important.
Yeah, you can exactly duplicate it and fix the parts of it you don't like, and it's really that's a lot less than, committing to an entire textbook, on your own. But you could bring, 3 different textbooks together as well, too, if you're, kind of able to do that or able to find, ones that work for you. The kind of remixing and remastering stuff, I think, is going to go a long way once these, resources kind of develop to the point where there are quite a few of them. It's going to be kind of interesting, to kind of pull from different textbooks and different content.
It can also just be a great way to enhance your course content, right? Too, to
Correct. Yeah.
provide like ancillary resources. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate.
Oh, thank you everybody for coming.
Expertise.
Yeah, thank you for listening to us.
Oh yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah, and it's great, and we'll make sure to share this with our math community as well, so that they have some sense of what's out there and what everybody's doing. So I appreciate that.
Yes, please do. Thank you, Aaron, so much for moderating us.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you. I put the first link in there is to access recordings and slides for the week. And the second link is to check out the USDLA website that helps promote SUNY online webinars this week. And they have other variety of sessions available as well. So encourage you to check that.